Anne runs as fast as she can, escaping from a wild boar, and does not understand how she ended up in this place, especially in the form of a little girl. The day before, the girl had been reading her favorite story about werewolves until late at night. Anne was so happy for her favorite characters that at some point she accidentally hit her head on the bed. The girl, still not understanding how she ended up in the primeval forest, runs in the hope that her life will not end so quickly. Suddenly, a black wolf cub appears from the side, grabs the girl by the clothes, and jumps to the side. Saving a stranger from a wild boar, the wolf cub jumps straight into the dense bushes growing on the sides of the path. The werewolf transforms into human form and tells the girl that his name is Sean. The boy covers Anne's mouth and asks her to be quiet because the danger in the form of the boar is still nearby. The girl is in a panic. If there is a werewolf in front of her, it means she has ended up in the world of animals, just like in her favorite book. Suddenly, an angry boar appears from the bushes. Sean grabs Anne's hand and the children run on. Realizing that he can't run far with the girl, the boy takes out a strange whistle and blows it loudly and long. Completely mesmerized, Anne notices that the boar has suddenly stopped and is no longer chasing them. The girl is so happy to be saved that she rushes at Sean, hugs him and thanks him for saving her. But the boy fearfully asks her not to let go. Anne doesn't hear her savior's pleas. For some reason, she's madly in love with hugging the wolf cub. But suddenly, the boy strangely went limp and fell to the ground without feeling. Suddenly, Joe the lion, the wolf cub's older brother, emerges from the bushes and says in a completely human voice that he has finally found Sean. Before Anne could come to her senses, the lion noticed that the girl was surprised and offered to join his tribe to participate in the continuation of the family line. Anne, who is quite grown up in the body of a little girl, does not want to participate in the continuation of the werewolf race, and categorically refuses. Approaching the wolf cub, Joe shakes him, trying to bring him to his senses. But the boy is in no hurry to come to his senses. The silhouette in the bushes sarcastically remarks that Sean is fine. He is just pretending to attract attention to himself. Dan, a young white werewolf lion, slowly emerges from the bushes. Anne can't contain her emotions. The boy is incredibly handsome, especially since the girl has a strange weakness for blondes. Dan is rude to the girl, and the lion laughingly remarks that if the boy behaves like this with females, he will remain alone. The lion cub remarks that he doesn't even understand what the girl is talking about. Anne retorts that the boy is too young to understand anything. The children continue to attack each other, and the lion tries to calm them down with a laugh. After a couple of minutes, Joe gets fed up with this squabble, lets out a loud roar and orders the children to be quiet. The beast tells Anne that most of the werewolves in the tribe are very friendly, and invites the girl to join them, and then no one will hurt her. The lion continues to describe how prosperity, strength, democracy, and civilization reign in the tribe. But Anne asks the lion to stop. She understood everything perfectly. Dan proudly turns away and throws aside that there is no need to crucify himself in front of the girl. If she doesn't want to, then let her stay here. Joe slaps the lion cub and suggests that Anne take a look at the tribe and then decide whether she wants to stay in it or not. Suddenly, the ground disappears from under Anne's feet. Everything around her begins to shake, and a rumble is heard from afar. The girl asks in fear what it is. Lev says that these are wild rhinos migrating, and Dan remarks that they cannot stay here for long. Dan helps throw Sean onto the lion's back, and the animal suggests that the girl climb on him so they can get to the tribe faster. The girl climbs onto the lion's back. She doesn't want to be trampled by rhinos. She decides to go with the werewolves, and if anything happens, she can escape later. Turning to Dan, Anne arrogantly declares that she has no intention of being his friend. After a few minutes of running at high speed, the company stops in front of a nice village. Suddenly, a dagger flies past Joe at high speed, and the girl is horrified, thinking that the village has been captured by enemies. On the threshold of one of the huts stands the beautiful Linda, Joe's partner, and reproachfully says that the werewolves have finally returned. Joe, ignoring Linda's antics, enthusiastically invites the girl to see who they brought. Seeing Anne, Linda runs up to her and begins to look at her with enthusiasm, saying that the girl is a wonderful little female. Noticing Dan walking away silently, Anne sadly remarks that the boy looks very lonely. The reincarnated Joe explains that the lion cub became so unsociable because his parents abandoned him. The girl, not knowing what awaits her, makes up on the fly that she is also an orphan, abandoned by her parents because they did not have enough food. Anne's words bring genuine tears to Linda's eyes. She says that there are no free huts in the village now, and the girl can live with them. Joe gloomily advises the girl not to be sad. They have plenty of food, and his tribe will never abandon its fellow tribesmen. Linda kindly invites Anne to make herself at home, where no one will offend her. The girl, amazed by such a kind attitude, begins to think that this place is not so bad. All the children of the werewolf tribe, radiating genuine hospitality, come to meet Anne. The boys look at the girl with interest, noting how tall she is and asking her name. Anne is happily basking in the glory. She loves such kindness and attention. She decides that this place is simply amazing. Suddenly, a hand with a white flower reaches out to the girl from the side, and a shy voice says that it is especially for her. Anne turns to see the adorable twins, Kat and Lori, who enthusiastically welcome her to the werewolf tribe. The girls gossip about Sean fainting again and tell the girl that the wolf cub can't stand being touched. The twins ask Anne if she has seen the white lion cub with the sour expression yet, and advise her to stay away from him because he is not like them. Then other children also pick up on the idea that white lions are strange and can curse. Anne is confused and thinks that now it is clear why Dan is so lonely. It is all because of superstition. The children say that in their tribe there is an elder, the kindest and most amazing werewolf, and also simply a beauty. The werewolves say that the elder taught everyone how to cook delicious food with the help of fire, and also taught them how to dry meat. So now they have plenty of food in the winter. Anne thinks that the elder is familiar with human customs. Perhaps she knows something. She needs to meet with her. Suddenly they shout with delight that the elder has arrived. Anne eagerly wants to look at the wonderful beauty. Amanda invites the girl to take a walk around the village, explaining that the area is divided into 3 sectors. Hunting grounds and logistics are the most important, most of which belong to males. In the next sector, they are preparing supplies. Later, the girl will be able to come there and help. Pointing towards the dark, gloomy forest, Amanda says that there is a 3rd sector there, but it is a restricted area, and one should not go there. Suddenly, the elder hears some kind of squeak, says that she needs to go, and Anne can continue her walk on her own. The girl watches as the elder walks away towards the forbidden area and realizes that this all looks very strange. Anne decides to check on the wolf cub and asks a girl passing by if she can tell her where Sean lives. The girl looks warily at Anne and asks if they are the strange stranger that Joe brought into the tribe. Suddenly, the girl takes out a whip, swings it with all her might, and is clearly about to attack the frightened Anne. Sean, who had appeared from the bushes, covers the girl with his body, demanding that Kayla calm down and put away the whip. Kayla furiously says that it was because of Anne that Sean lost consciousness, and she will teach anyone who hurts the wolf a lesson. Anne, frightened, grabs Sean's hand and tries to justify herself by saying that she didn't know about the wolf cub's reaction to touching and didn't want this outcome. Kayla watches in surprise as Anne holds Sean's hand and asks why the boy isn't fainting now. Sean looks at the girl's hand in amazement, and Anne says that for some reason her touch doesn't have a negative effect on the boy. Kayla jumps up in horror. Since the boy has no reaction, it means he has a very close relationship with the stranger. Sean's girlfriend runs away in tears. Anne breathes a sigh of relief, and the boy asks if she's okay. Having decided that Kayla could have injured the girl with a whip, the wolf cub wants to take her to a healer. Suddenly, the girl notices a piece of bloody cloth on one of the bushes. Anne tells Sean about her discovery, but the boy replies that pieces of fabric torn off during a fight are normal and not worth worrying about. Anne turns around, alarmed by the fact that the fabric seems strangely familiar. In the bushes, Dan licks his wounded hand and notes with relief that the girl and Sean have finally left. The lion cub walks towards the house. The children around him notice that he is wounded, but no one comes close to the boy. Dan bitterly recalls that from birth, because of his white hair, everyone considered him a monster. The tribal elder told the mother that the boy was cursed by God and the entire tribe was awaiting destruction. And to appease God, the boy must be exiled. The lion cub's parents had no choice, and one day they took him to an abandoned cave and left. And the boy clearly understood that he should never have been born. Hiding in one of the huts, Dan cries, muttering that he doesn't want to see anyone and hates everyone. But suddenly, Anne enters the hut and notices bloodstains on the floor. The girl happily says that she has been looking for Dan for a long time and wants to help him. The girl hands Dan a piece of paper and happily says that with the help of a secret recipe and the paper, she will stop his bleeding. Anne laughs as she explains that she falls all the time and that her grandmother always stops her bleeding this way. Dan says ironically that according to rumors in the tribe, If a girl touches the blood of a white tiger, she will be cursed. Anne starts laughing and says that she doesn't believe this nonsense, and she really likes the boy himself. Dan can't believe his ears. Since childhood, he's been used to people avoiding him. Anne strokes the boy's hair and can't tear herself away from him. For some reason, werewolves make her want to constantly squeeze them. The children, having learned that Anne helped Dan, decide that she may now be cursed and they should not approach her. The twins, sitting in the bushes, tell Anne that they still like her, but now they are afraid of being cursed. The girl recalls that the elder was also quite frightened when she saw how Anne stopped the lion cub's bleeding. The girl decides that if everyone now avoids her, then no one will stop her from looking into the forbidden place. Suddenly, the girl hears a strange rustling sound behind her and becomes very scared. Sean, who has crept up, says that she can't be here, but Anne says that only here no one sees her and says that she is cursed. The wolf cub gently says that it is not the girl's fault. Werewolves always think only of themselves and are constantly afraid of something. Anne is surprised. It's the first time she hears so many words at once from Sean. It turns out that his vocabulary is fine. Suddenly, the girl asks the wolf cub if he is afraid of becoming a loser. Sean indifferently replies that he does not have such thoughts. The boy remembers his lonely days spent in the cave and tells the girl that it won't be easy for her alone, so he is here. Hearing a strange noise in the distance, Anne says that she will go check out what is going on, and the wolf cub decides to go with her. Barely keeping up with the werewolf, Anne is glad that they have finally reached the place, because she no longer has the strength to run. Suddenly, the girl again hears some strange sound that had previously attracted her attention and suddenly becomes frightened. Entering the cave, the children are amazed to see the elder performing some strange ritual over a girl lying on the floor. Noticing the guests, the elder calmly explains that her beloved is ill, and Amanda must return to the real world to take her to the hospital. The elder says that he knows that Anne is also not from this world, and invites the girl to go with them. Amanda sees the girl's hesitation and says that she can stay here, but then the chance will be lost, because the teleport can only be used once. Suddenly, an excited Dan runs into the cave and asks Anne if she really wants to leave. The girl doesn't understand where the lion cub came from, and Sean says that he's obviously been watching them all this time. Dan passionately replies that he saw the girl going into the forbidden area and was afraid that she could harm the tribe. With feigned indifference, the lion cub says that if the girl wants to leave, then she should just leave. He doesn't care about it. Sean sadly says that he won't stop the girl either. She should go home. Amanda laughs and says that Anne can stay, but her two friends clearly don't want her to go. Anne says that the boys are still little, and when they grow up, they will understand that the golden nest is not as good as their own kennel. The girl grabs Amanda's hand with a strong desire to return home to her real life. The girl flies through time and space and eventually lands on her bed. Anne is happy to be home. She hugs her pillow with joy and realizes how much she misses the usual comfort. But before she can even take a breath, the girl is lifted into the air and again spun into a spatial whirlpool. Anne falls very quickly and hits the ground with her face at full force. The girl looks at the symbols on the floor in amazement and realizes that this place is very familiar to her. Has she really returned to the primeval forest again? Suddenly, a huge white lion appears next to Anne and calls the girl by name. The lion takes on human form, and the grown-up Dan, with tears in his eyes, says that he had a premonition of Anne's return. The young man hugs the girl, presses her to himself with all his strength, and says that no matter what the girl becomes, he will always recognize her. The young man admits that in the 10 years that have passed since the girl's disappearance, he could not forgive himself for letting her go. Leo looks deeply into Anne's eyes and says that this time he will never let her go. Suddenly, the young man kisses the girl passionately and hotly, and she is amazed to realize that this is not how she imagined her first kiss. The young man continues to kiss the girl and passionately whispers that Anne should be his. Suddenly, an angry voice comes from the entrance of the cave, ordering Dan to take his hands off the girl. Turning around, the girl sees a gorgeous young brunette who is still angrily demanding that the lion move aside. The brunette stands between Dan and Anne and shouts that the lion himself doesn't understand what he's done. Two guys are ready to fight each other, figuring out who will own the girl. Anne, sitting to the side, understands that obviously they are not going to ask her opinion here. Suddenly, werewolves enter the cave and shout that the tribe is saved because the messenger of the gods has finally appeared. Anne wonders if everyone really thought she would save the sick and wounded just because she appeared in the restricted area. One of the tribesmen runs up to the girl, her whole face affected by an unknown disease, and begs her to save her. An aging Joe asks Anne to try holding the girl's hand and saying certain words. Anne obediently does everything the werewolf said, and suddenly a wonderful glow appears around the girl's hands. The sick girl looks at her hands in bewilderment and says that she feels surprisingly well. Anne is amazed. It turns out that she really can heal others with just one touch. Suddenly, Joe runs out of the cave with a wild cry and joyfully shouts that the tribe is now saved. Sean examines the girl's injured leg and wholeheartedly welcomes her back to the tribe. The girl can't take her eyes off the wolf. He's become such a handsome man over the past 10 years. Dan immediately appears in front of Anne, admits that he acted recklessly with the kiss, and asks if the girl should be angry with him. Anne replies with irritation that, as an old friend, she will forgive the guy, but earnestly asks him not to do it again. Suddenly, Dan hugs the girl tightly again and asks her to admit that she liked it. The guy pulls the girl towards the exit. She giggles stupidly and suggests that they go back to the village and talk about everything there. Coming out of the cave, the girl is amazed to see the gathered werewolves, who greet her and shout that she is the messenger of the god of animals. Dan grabs Anne in his arms and says that since she is a messenger of God, he simply has to take her to the tribe. Sean looks longingly after the young people, realizing that he is too modest to behave so openly. Joe, who met the girl, says that he knew about the girl's peculiarity from the very beginning and offers her to choose any man she wants. Young, handsome werewolves begin to show themselves in all their glory, each hoping that the girl will choose him. Anne is confused about how to make a choice if all the werewolves are handsome, one after the other. Dan hugs the girl and angrily says that the guys don't have to try. The messenger has already chosen him. One of the handsome men states that a woman cannot have only one partner, so everyone has a chance. Joe laughs and says that Dan waited 10 years for Anne, and if the girl chooses someone else, it will be unfair. Suddenly, Anne thinks that when she returned to the tribe, she never saw Sean. Taking the girl to his home, Dan boastfully says that in addition to delicious food, he is an excellent hunter, can build houses and sew clothes. The guy admits that he only needs Anne and he can really make her happy. The girl is confused by Dan's pressure. She is at a loss and doesn't know what to answer him. Suddenly, a girl runs into the hut and begs the messenger to help. Once in the infirmary, Anne sees sick werewolves and learns that the disease is spreading quickly and that medications only slow it down, but do not cure it. Joe says that several tribes are in dire straits. The beast god did not protect the werewolf tribe, and they have already lost many. Joe bows before Anne and says that their prayers have been answered. A messenger has appeared, and he begs her to help. The girl is shocked by what happened and promises to do everything in her power. Healthy werewolves gather in the clearing, offer prayers and praise the messenger. Suddenly, the girl feels dizzy. She leans on Dan and does not want others to see her weakness. Anne realizes that she is very tired and asks the lion to take her to the hut. Dan picks the girl up in his arms and announces that the messenger is tired and will continue tomorrow. At the cabin, Dan tells Joe that Anne's weakness is due to energy depletion and that she needs to rest. Joe agrees that the others don't need to know about it. The guy takes the girl by the hand and tenderly says that he will take care of her. Sean, who brought gifts for the girl, stands at the door and listens attentively to the conversation. 3 hours later, Anne finally wakes up and tries to come to her senses. Dan calms the girl down, says that only a little time has passed, hands her a cup with medicine and offers her to drink. Hearing that Dan himself had prepared the medicine, the girl choked and spat the entire drink into the guy's face. The girl is very embarrassed. She wipes the young man and makes excuses that the medicine is impossible to drink. The girl strokes the guy's chest and can't stop. These touches cause strange sensations in her. Suddenly, Dan stands up and turns away sharply, muttering that he's going to make another dose of medicine. The young people's eyes meet, and they cannot tear themselves away from each other. None of them have ever experienced anything like this. Suddenly, Dan pins Anne to the ground. The girl is frightened by his pressure and has trouble understanding how she should react to what is happening. Anne is frightened by such closeness. Never before has a man touched her so openly. Dan kisses the girl tenderly and remarks that since they are now a couple, why not enjoy this intimacy? Obeying some internal protest, the girl instinctively bends her knee and Dan begins to howl in pain. At this moment, Kayla enters the hut, is embarrassed by the sight that unfolds before her, and coughs delicately. Anne runs up to the girl with relief and says that despite past disagreements, she is very glad to see her. Kayla says that the medicine man is calling Anne. The young people leave the hut and come across a bundle of treats. Kayla notes that this is very typical of Sean, but even if it is, he still won't admit it. Anne hugs the gifts to her chest with trepidation and thinks about how Sean has always been very kind to her. Joe says that some recovered people experience a relapse of the disease, even though they had no contact with sick people and did nothing but hunt. Anne thoughtfully asks if the sick people ate the same food. If the disease is not transmitted by airborne droplets, then it is all about the food. Joe orders Dan to take someone with him and check that everything is okay with the food. Sean's brother turns to the girl and asks if she and Dan made a vow. The girl is puzzled, does not understand what is being discussed, and asks what kind of oath this is. Werewolves undergo a fire ritual, receive the blessing of the beast god, and form a union, after which the couple feels each other's emotions and can produce offspring. Anne laughs shyly and says that she is still too young to think about marriage. Dan and Sean arrive and report that they found a deer with a strange red rash on its belly. Leo reports that there were many dried red fruits scattered around the stream, which the deer were eating. Anne says thoughtfully that if the red fruits are the cause of everything, then this epidemic is not a natural disaster. Joe says that this may be a provocation from a neighboring hostile tribe, and that they need to report this to the elder. Sean volunteers to go first. Anne catches up with the guy and thanks him for leaving a bundle of goodies. The wolf, as expected, denies everything. Dan interrupts the conversation and, distracting the girl, says that he hurt his hand. The girl, understanding the whole situation, says with a laugh that such a scratch will heal on its own. Sean, not wanting to watch the couple, leaves, but Anne calls out to him. Dan jealously asks the girl if one lion isn't enough for her. The girl replies, rather irritated, that there are no such things as too many handsome men. Anne understands that Dan needs another partner, needs to deal with the epidemic as quickly as possible, and find a way to return home. Dan resolutely says that despite the girl's words, he will do everything possible to remain the only one in her heart. The guy seriously declares to the girl that he respects her wishes, and if the girl wants to be with someone else, then Leo does not object. After hearing from Dan that Anne can mate with whomever she wants, the girl is speechless and doesn't know what to tell him. The girl runs away in irritation, and Dan laughs and thinks that being tactless is very cute. Sitting at the table, the tribe representatives ponder which of the neighboring tribes could have done this. The healer says that they are all tribes of the same race. And besides, winter is approaching, and there is no point in making enemies. Joe reflects that their conflict is only with the lion tribe, since they once accepted the rejected Dan. Anne carefully asks the lion if everything is okay. The guy carelessly replies that everything is fine. Dan says that only the four of them, Sean and the patrol squad, know about the berries. Anne reasons that if they can't find anyone, it means someone leaked the information, and in that case, they can pull off the empty city trick. The werewolves, returning from the hunt, look in surprise at the deserted village and do not understand what happened to the tribe. The girls say with fear that the messenger obviously failed and the epidemic got out of control. The girlfriends say that the white lion led the squad away. Everyone needs to get ready to leave this place. They will go on reconnaissance, and the rest of them should stay in the forest for now. Tim hides behind a tree and thinks that today and tomorrow it will be possible to attack the remaining werewolves. The witch doctor states that he did not think that there would be rebels in the patrol squad. Sean considers himself to be to blame for what happened. Anne decisively declares that now it is clear who their enemy is. All that remains is to expose them. Suddenly, one of the girls grabs Anne, puts a knife to her throat, and demands that everyone move aside. Anne asks the girl why she is doing this. She replies that Tim is not guilty of anything. She does not want to hurt the messenger. She just needs to leave. The guys understand that they can't let the girl go, otherwise they will lose everything. The girl, in tears, screams that she just wants to save Tim and begs him to let her go. Sean angrily demands that the girl let Anne go, because if it weren't for her, everyone would have died from the disease long ago. The girl retreats towards the exit, but at some point Anne trips over a stone and falls, dragging the traitor down with her. A powerful roar is heard and a large black wolf jumps towards the girls. Sean pins the girl to the ground with his paws, but according to the laws of the pack, he cannot punish the female. When Anne fell, she hit herself quite hard and was unable to get up for some time, experiencing severe discomfort. Sean runs up to Anne, asks if she's okay. The girl strokes the guy's head and warmly thanks the wolf for saving her. Suddenly, Sean blushes deeply, and Anne jumps back in fright, remembering the guy's peculiarity. The guy says that he has learned to manage his emotions and no longer faints. Unexpectedly, even for herself, Anne asks if in this case it is possible to touch the guy's ears. The girl strokes the guy with delight, and the wolf thinks that, in fact, only his mate can touch ears. Pete, the elder brother of the lion tribe, angrily declares that there will be no mercy for the weaklings who fail to complete the task. The elder's son, Adam, carefully notes that his father asked him not to overdo it. Pete claims that his little brother is too cautious and only became that way because he let Dan go. Young men from the lion tribe threaten the captured werewolves, promising that their death will not be easy. Adam grins and tells Tim that he is here specifically to deal with him. Suddenly, Adam accidentally touches the rope with his foot. The trap opens and Tim manages to escape. The son of the elder of the lion tribe finds himself trapped and mocked by his enemies. Anne and Dan walk through the forest, heading to the place where traitors are punished. The werewolves who greet the messenger say that the traitor poisoned his fellows and deserves death. Suddenly, the girl notices a red rash on Adam's body. The boy has also become infected with the disease that their tribe infects the werewolves with. The girl wants to help treat the enemies, but the healer asks Anne to take care of Dan, because the matter concerns his former tribe. The girl takes the lion away from his former tribesmen and offers to examine the other captives. Examining the other captives, the girl notices that they all have the same strange rash. Anne sadly realizes that the lion tribe deliberately spread their epidemic to other tribes in order to seize their resources. Dan extends his hand and invites the girl to return back to the village. The lion, watching from behind the trees, understands that if the epidemic is true, then his father can still be saved. At night, a lion looms over a sleeping girl and is about to kidnap her. Anne cleverly sets a trap for the lion and tells him to be quiet. Otherwise, all the werewolves will come running. Adam appears before the girl in human form and demands that she let him go. Anne ironically remarks that she has caught another small lion and asks why the young man wanted to kidnap her. Adam confidently declares that they can do whatever they want to him, but he will not betray his tribe. Anne runs her hand over the boy's lips and says that there are many ways to make a lion speak. Suddenly, the girl starts kissing Adam's neck. The guy, very embarrassed, shouts at her to stop. Suddenly, Dan enters the hut and asks in bewilderment what the girl is doing. Anne puts on an innocent face and claims that she is just interrogating the enemy. Dan says he doesn't mind, but for games like this, they need to find someone who isn't as small and useless as Adam. The young man angrily says that he has an important mission. He must deliver a messenger to the clan so that she can cure his father. Adam confesses that his Uncle Pete spread the infection throughout all the tribes in order to later find a cure. And, as the savior, take the post of chief of the tribe. The girl thoughtfully says that she can help the lion tribe, but then Dan will have to become the leader. Adam looks at the young people and categorically states that this is simply impossible. Anne notes that their tribe is infected, and the werewolves have the chief's son captive, so it's unlikely he will be able to refuse them. Sean thinks sadly that he doesn't want to touch anyone except Anne, but he can't touch her either. The next morning, Anne lines everyone up and examines each person in the tribe. Many werewolves are infected, but the girl tries to help everyone. Each time, she manages to heal werewolves faster and faster, and Anne is pleased to think that her abilities are growing. Adam comes up to Dan and says that his father wants to see a white lion. Sam, the elder of the lion tribe, greets Dan and says that they finally meet. The chief sadly admits that he regrets not stopping his fellow tribesmen many years ago. The white lion indifferently says that everything happened for the best. He has his own wonderful tribe. Sam says with surprise that if Dan wants to become the leader of their tribe, he must return. The guy indifferently replies that he only wants to be with Anne. Meanwhile, the messenger enters Sean's hut with treats and calls the guy. But the young man, in the guise of a wolf, jumps out of the window and runs into the forest. And Anne tries to catch up with him. The girl trips and falls. Noticing this, the wolf runs up to her and asks if the girl is hurt. Anne instantly jumps up, hugs the werewolf, and slyly says that she deceived him. The wolf pounces on the girl, knocks her to the ground, and begins to lick her. But suddenly, Sean stops himself abruptly, moves away from the girl, and runs into the forest. Kayla approaches the girl and asks with disdain if Anne is going to catch up with Sean. The messenger notices that her hand is sticky, shakes it, and asks in bewilderment what happened to the wolf. Kayla indifferently remarks that the girl merely provoked the wolf into heat, and now he has no choice but to die. Anne is horrified and asks what to do now, because she can't leave Sean alone. Kayla takes the messenger by the hand. says that they need to find the guy and that Anne can help him with her power. The girl walks across the lawn in hopes of finding Sean, but the wolf stubbornly hides in the bushes. Eventually, Anne finds the guy, throws herself into his arms, and asks why he runs away every time. The girl looks into Sean's eyes and asks him with concern whether he needs treatment or if everything is okay. But instead of answering, the wolf leans towards the girl and begins to kiss her tenderly, begging her to give him tenderness at least once. Dan approaches Anne's hut, knocks on the door for a long time, and, without waiting for an answer, decides that the girl is asleep. Meanwhile, in the forest, Sean pins the girl to a tree, not intending to miss his chance and let Anne go. For a while, the messenger tries to resist, but then the feelings she has for the wolf take over and she gives in. Sometime later, Anne wakes up in Sean's bed and at first tries to remember what happened. The girl pulls the blanket over her face in embarrassment and wonders how the treatment could have ended like this. Suddenly, the girl experiences severe pain in her lower back and Sean wakes up from her scream. Sean holds up the healing ointment the healer gave him and says it's his turn to do the healing. Anne tries to refuse help, citing that she doesn't want to cause the guy any extra trouble. Suddenly, Sean announces that he wants to thank Anne because they are getting married in a few days. The girl at first takes the guy's words as a joke and starts laughing, but Sean remains serious. Anne is furious that they will get married without anyone asking her whether they want to or not. The girl's back hurts again and the wolf feels guilty for the bruises on her lower back. Sean says that if a girl is afraid of pain, she can hold a guy's tail as a distraction. Anne can't refuse such an offer, and why does she have such a strange craving for touch? Suddenly, the girl tells Sean that if he doesn't like her, then they can pretend that nothing happened. They don't have to get married at all. The wolf admits that he really likes the girl, even though Dan has also quite clearly expressed his sympathy. Sean brings his face closer to Anne's, and the girl thinks that she simply cannot reject the feelings of such a wonderful man. Suddenly, the door starts shaking from Dan's thunderous blows, and the guy shouts that he'll come in now. The lion looks at the wolf angrily, asks what he is doing here and where Anne is. The wolf calmly replies that the girl needs to rest, and the lion needs to leave. Then Dan smells Anne's scent on Sean, so he pushes the guy aside and walks into the room. The girl, embarrassed, tells Dan that Sean had been feeling unwell for the last few days and she had to help him. The lion shouts in rage that the wolf cannot feel bad. He is pretending as always. Anne presses her hand to her head, says that she feels terrible, asks the guys to be quiet and let her rest. The guys immediately stop arguing and ask with concern what happened to her. Anne says she just needs some rest and the guys better follow her example. Dan sighs sadly, turns away, and with his shoulders drooping, leaves the room. Lev comes out of the hut, and on the threshold he runs into Kayla, who is carrying some kind of large box. The girl notices the guy's sad look. Kayla comes into the hut, points to the box and says that she came to apologize for her little deception. The girl winks and says that her partner sewed the best blanket from animal skins. It's a wedding gift. The young people are embarrassed. Anne thanks the girl and says that they are in no hurry to get married. Kayla says that the wedding is a mandatory ritual. Whoever does not receive the blessing of the animal god will end badly. Anne looks at Sean thoughtfully and asks if he really wants to get married that badly. The wolf replies that after the wedding and receiving the blessing, they will be happy forever. As Anne passes the girls, she overhears them discussing how Dan will lead the winter hunt this year. The girl is perplexed that the lion did not tell her anything about going hunting. Arriving at the farewell ceremony, the messenger sees that Dan is surrounded by the twins, Kat and Lori, who are very ambiguously seeing him off on his way. Anne, upset, suggests that Sean leave quietly so as not to disturb the lovebirds as they say goodbye. The wolf walks the girl to the door of the hut and wishes her goodnight. The girl tenderly says goodbye in return. Suddenly, Anne hears a wild crack and watches in horror as her hut collapses to the ground. Hiding in the bushes, Kayla excitedly tells her partner that she has amazing demolition skills and hopes that Sean will not miss this opportunity. Having brought the messenger to himself, the wolf says that tomorrow he will find someone who will build the girl a new house. Seeing the guy leaving, Anne fearfully asks where he is. Sean proudly replies that he will guard her outside. The girl says that it is very cold today, and she will be afraid to sleep alone. Suddenly, Anne, like a little girl, admits that she wants to sleep hugging her tail. Sometime later, the girl realizes that she will hardly be able to sleep next to Sean. Holding hands, Sean and Anne listen to the words of the wedding ceremony, which is conducted by the tribe's medicine man. The healer says that from now on, the couple will be together in this life and in the next. Only the male can change his mind. According to the ritual, young people need to feed each other to share joy and sorrow. After some time, the healer solemnly congratulates Anne and Sean and says that now, with the blessing of the god of animals, they have become a couple. Joe and Linda stand nearby, recalling their wedding ceremony with tears in their eyes. Suddenly, Anne says that she seems to feel Sean's emotions. The guy replies that he also feels how happy the girl is. The girl gently takes her partner by the arm and asks him to carry her home because she is tired. Joe says that as soon as Dan finds out about the ceremony, he will cry his eyes out. Linda notes that Anne and Sean are amazingly suited to each other. Dan had been watching the ceremony the whole time, sitting in the bushes. The guy was simply furious that Anne had married someone else. 4 days ago, the lion tried his best to become the best partner, stopping at nothing. The guy wanted to bring home as much fur and food as possible so that Anne would finally forget about Sean. But she didn't wait for him. Anne is going to go check if the bleeding of the werewolves wounded by the beast has stopped. Dan and Sean simultaneously hand the tired girl handkerchiefs and offer to wipe away her sweat. The girl feels guilty before the lion, so she gratefully takes the scarf from him. Dan does not give up hope that his beloved girlfriend will come back to him. Anne turns to Sean, hands him the lion's scarf, and asks him to help her tidy herself up. Wandering through the forest, the girl collects fruits to help the tribe prepare supplies for the winter. Suddenly, Dan calls out to the girl, points to a huge pile of apples and says that he picked them for her. Anne points to the huge pile of apples and says that her husband has already taken care of that. Dan is frustrated that no matter what he does, Sean is always several steps ahead of him. Sean is dragged away by his fellow tribesmen and warns his wife that he is being called from a hunting group, but that he will return soon. Hearing that the wolf has left, Dan decides to take the chance to make Anne finally notice him. Leo approaches the girl and asks if she needs anything for work. He has everything, but Anne replies that her hands are enough for her. Leaving the cave, the boy cries bitterly. He has been rejected once again, but he still will not give up his attempts. Anne walks through the forest, sniffing the scents of herbs, and doesn't know if she can find what she needs from such a faint aroma. Suddenly, the girl hears strange sounds in the bushes and sees Kayla and her partner passionately kissing. The girl is embarrassed and surprised. She sees 2 girls kissing for the first time. In the evening, Anne lies in Sean's arms, but her thoughts keep returning to what she saw in the forest. Suddenly, there is a knock at the door and the girl irritably decides to open the door herself. The messenger comes out onto the porch and sees that Dan has arrived. In the lazy light, he is simply beautiful. The girl shouts to Sean that Kylie has arrived and they will chat a little outside. The wolf is a little puzzled. Kylie didn't have the habit of visiting at such a time before. Suddenly, the lion presses the girl against the wall of the house and asks in despair why she didn't choose him. Why he's not so good. Without waiting for an answer from Anne, Dan leans down and passionately kisses the messenger. For some reason, the girl does not resist. Sean steps out onto the porch and notices with distaste that there is a white lion standing there. The guys start to pull the girl towards each other. Each one is sure that Anne will be better with him. Dan desperately asks the girl if she doesn't need him, and Sean notes that it's late and it's time for everyone to go to bed. The messenger turns to Dan and says that it is really late and it is time for him to go home. Tomorrow they can discuss everything. The wolf tells the girl that she is not guilty of anything and that she has the right to choose other men. In the morning, Anne goes into the forest in the hope of meeting Dan and explaining herself to him. Eagles circle in the sky and discuss that they have finally found the one they need. One of the birds swoops down and grabs Anne, and the lion screams in rage at the Eagle clan to release the messenger. Sean is training when one of his brothers runs up to him and excitedly says that Anne was taken away by the Eagle clan. Instantly turning into a wolf, the boy calls his brothers and orders everyone to go to the mountains. From above, the girl watches as Dan desperately tries to catch up with the eagles. Anne begins to kick in the bird's clutches and scream that she should be released immediately. The bird decides to teach the girl a lesson, unclenches its claws, and Anne begins to fall with a loud scream. Seeing the fall, the lion runs below, trying to find a comfortable place, and shouts to the girl that he will definitely catch her. The eagle deftly picks up the messenger right at the ground and says with a laugh that he won't do that next time. Suddenly, a huge white lion jumps out from the nearest tree and grabs the bird right by the wing. The lion does not let go of the bird and roars that he will take Anne at any cost. The girl realizes with horror how dangerous this is. The lion and the eagle begin to fall, and then another bird intercepts the girl. carrying her away from the events. Anne reaches out to Dan in desperation, realizing that she can't help him in any way. The messenger gradually begins to come to her senses, not understanding what happened and where she is. The girl sees a hand extended to her with a cup of water and absent-mindedly thanks her. Anne looks at the handsome young man in surprise and realizes that he reminds her very much of someone. The messenger thinks that the man is the spitting image of a student she admired at university. The girl angrily pushes away the hand with water and sharply asks who is in front of her and where is Dan. The man introduces himself as Edward, the leader of the Eagle clan, and apologizes for the way they had to meet. Anne irritably states that she is unwell both physically and psychologically. How else can one feel after being kidnapped? A young man runs into the cave and joyfully shouts that the messenger has finally woken up. The young man says that his name is Jasper. He is the chief's younger brother, and it was he who was carrying the girl before the lion attacked him. When Anne asks where the lion is, the guy nonchalantly replies that he must have turned into minced meat. The girl gets scared and starts crying convulsively, which confuses the men. Anne decides to play on the men's emotions to lower their guard and begins to sob loudly. The messenger sobs and begs to see the lion one last time, and Jasper, in fear, calls his brother for help. Edward clears his throat to the side and calmly informs the young people that the white lion is fine. Suddenly calming down, Anne coldly asks what the brothers were planning and why they kidnapped her. Edward says that their clan is facing great problems, and after Anne helps them, she will stay and become a benefactor of the clan. The girl is amazed at such impudence and asks what will happen to her if she cannot help. The chief says that their tribe did not do this by accident, but if the girl wants to leave, then no one will hold her back by force. Seeing Anne running away from the cave, Jasper asks why his brother let her go. It's unlikely they'll be able to kidnap her again. The messenger runs out of the cave and finds herself on the edge of the abyss. Now it's clear why they let her go so easily. Edward comes up and says that Anne can't leave on her own, but not because he's stopping her. The leader calmly explains that if the girl helps them, he will call someone and they will immediately return her to Earth. Suddenly, an eagle flies up to the cave and shouts that they have caught the wrong girl, that Anne is not the messenger of the beast god. All three, including the girl herself, look at the bird in bewilderment. Edward turns away silently and walks deeper into the cave, leaving Anne and Jasper alone. Turning around, the chief coldly tells his brother that they don't need the girl, and orders him to throw her off the cliff. In horror, Anne screams that she is the messenger and can prove it. The girl says that a true messenger can heal, and noticing that Vaude is constantly coughing, offers to cure him. Edward agrees, but Anne says that his brother should move away so as not to interfere. The girl approaches the chief, takes his hands, and says that physical contact is needed for healing. Having received approval, the girl presses her whole body tightly against Edward. The young people stand on the very edge of the abyss, and the girl boldly takes a step back, pulling the leader along with her. The couple flies down, and Anne says that if she is destined to fall into the abyss, then the chief will fly with her. Not far from the mountains, werewolves led by Sean are prowling through the forest, trying to find at least some trace. Suddenly, the guy, tuned into Anne and feeling her emotions, senses the girl's fear. As he falls, Edward asks with a grin if this is really how the girl wanted to escape. Anne understands that they are still far from the ground. If the leader manages to transform, then they have a chance to be saved. At the very last moment, Edward manages to turn into an eagle, and slowing the girl's fall, still allows her to fall to the ground. Anne jumps to her feet, runs into the forest, and happily thinks that she has managed to escape and will soon return to her tribe. An hour later, the girl, with despair and irritation, realizes that she is completely lost. Suddenly, the messenger hears a voice in her head, which notes that now Anne can walk alone in the twilight forest. A voice in her head explains that it is the tribal elder Amanda, who has finally managed to contact the girl. Anne is genuinely glad to hear from Amanda and asks with concern if she was able to cure her beloved. After telling her that his partner is fine, the elder talks about the glitch that caused Anne to return, but if the girl wants to go home, Amanda will help her. The messenger sheepishly admits that she doesn't want to return to real life yet. Amanda laughingly remarks that she knows about the lion cub and the wolf cub. If the girl wants it that way, then let her stay. Anne asks if the elder can help her find Dan. He might need help. Amanda says that she now has access to high technology, and a couple of minutes later reports that she has found a lion. The elder reports that the boy is in a cave a couple of kilometers from the girl, and he really needs help. Anne calls the lion's name and he struggles to open his eyes and focus. After some time, the guy finally comes to his senses and can speak coherently. The girl is happy to see that Dan has fully recovered. Her treatment worked. The girl reproachfully asks why the guy jumped off the cliff because she might not have been able to help him. Leo hugs the girl tightly and says that he is very glad that nothing happened to her. The young man happily accepts the girl's care because he thought that he had become indifferent to her. Anne admits with embarrassment that she was thinking the same thing because the guy was so demonstratively flirting with the twins. The messenger says that when she saw Dan with the others, she was angry and confused. Lev understands that Anne is simply jealous of him, which means she really cares about him. The girl admits that for several days she thought only about the guy. Anne begins to think that she is not the only woman who wants two men. The guy hugs his beloved, kisses her, and proposes marriage. The girl no longer has the strength to resist the lion's pressure, and she finally gives in to her feelings. After some time, the girl looks at the fire and thinks that now she will definitely not be able to return home. Suddenly, the elder's voice sounds in the girl's head, suggesting that they get down to business. Amanda laughs at the girl's embarrassment and says that at the most inopportune moment she disconnected from Anne. After discussing the situation with Amanda, Dan angrily says that he will not let the eagles who kidnapped Anne get away so easily. Suddenly, the elder tells the lion not to rush to conclusions. Maybe it really would be better if the messenger helps them. Amanda sheepishly explains that she stole a magical blueprint from the eagle tribe, and that now is the time to return the favor. Somewhat taken aback by the elder's admission, Anne and Dan think that there is some point in helping then. The wolf says that the first thing to do is to take the girl to the healer so that he can examine her wounds. The girl tries to convince the guy that she is okay, and they have absolutely no time for this. Dan notes with displeasure that the girl is exhausted. When they return to the tribe, he will fix this. Anne says with a grin that even though the guy called her skinny, she is happy, and that is definitely not something that should be changed. Amanda was already a little tired of listening to the wolf's saccharine romantic confessions. It was time to get down to business. Suddenly Dan, who does not hear the elder's voice, invites the girl to take a bath. The wolf picks Anne up in his arms and carefully carries her to the pond. The elder and her beloved look at the young people with affection. They were once the same. At this time, Sean is beside himself with anxiety and desperately asks out loud where Anne is. Edward coughs hard in his cave and thinks that he will not give up and will get to the messenger. Dan doesn't let go of the girl for a second. At some point, Anne can't take it anymore and says that it's time for them to get out of the water. Seeing that the girl is angry, the lion uses a forbidden technique and invites her to touch his ears. After a while, the contented couple walks through the forest, heading towards the tribe's village. Suddenly, Anne notices beautiful red berries, but the lion warns her that they are poisonous. The girl really wants to look at the berries closer. The guy agrees to pick them, but on the condition that she does not eat them. Suddenly, a black wolf jumps out of the bushes and calls the girl by name. Turning around sharply, Anne happily recognizes Sean and runs towards him. The guy transforms, examines the girl from all sides, and asks if everything is okay with her. The guy says with concern that one way or another, the girl needs to see a healer. The lion, approaching from behind, says that this is not at all necessary, because he has already taken care of Anne. Deciding to play all his trump cards, Dan smugly reveals that Anne has agreed to marry him upon her return to the village. Sean hugs the girl tenderly and says that his only wish is for Anne to be safe and happy. Dan, hurt by the lack of attention, steps between the young men and says he knows about Sean's plans. Anne clutches her head in despair and suggests that the guys return to this conversation a little later. Suddenly, the girl notices mushrooms in the grass and happily gets ready to pick them for dinner. The lion declares that such things should be done by the strongest male and takes out a bag. Sean takes on the form of a wolf, notices that it is already dark, and asks Anne's permission to take her to the village as quickly as possible. The girl sits on the wolf and, turning to Dan, asks him to collect as many mushrooms as possible. Edward coughs and tells Jared that the situation in the tribe is getting worse, and if no action is taken, the tribe will die very soon. Jared looks with horror at how his brother's body has changed and says that a normal tribe can't just abandon someone in trouble like the werewolves did. Edward confidently says that the werewolves will help, because the eagle tribe is irreplaceable for everyone. The eagles circle above the werewolf village and discuss the safest way to get to Anne. The girl is tossing and turning in bed, unable to fall asleep, and Jared is peeping at her through the window. The girl hears some noise on the street and quietly asks who is there. The curtain pulls back and Edward appears before the girl in all his glory. Without letting the girl say a word, the leader covers her mouth with his hand and says that if she doesn't scream, he will remove his hand. Edward senses some discomfort coming from Anne and asks if everything is okay with the girl. The girl irritably remarks that sneaking into a room in the middle of the night is not the most appropriate behavior for a leader. Edward says that his tribe is in dire need of help and asks the messenger to go with him immediately. The girl laughingly asks how Edward is going to pick her up if there were werewolves guarding her outside. The leader anxiously asks if the werewolves are holding her by force, and besides, he didn't come alone and they could help the girl. Sean knocks on the door of the hut. Anne does not open it, and the wolf decides that the girl is already asleep. Dan appears and begins to accuse Sean of secretly sneaking up to the girl and not letting her rest. Hearing the werewolves squabbling outside the door, Edward covers Anne's mouth with his hand, saying that he knows the girl is not from this world. Jasper watches the boys bicker and doesn't understand how these two can coexist. Having decided to distract the werewolves, the young man throws a stone into the bushes. The guys all turn around at the sound. Smelling a familiar scent, the lion says with a grin that it must be the white-haired chicken that caused them problems. Unable to bear such impudence, Jasper jumps out of the bushes and proudly declares that he is from the noble clan of the Golden Eagle. The werewolves loom over the boy and menacingly ask how he dared to sneak into their village. Meanwhile, in the hut, Anne says that everyone in the tribe knows that she is not from this world, so threatening to expose her is pointless. Suddenly, Edward hugs the girl and whispers that he can bring her home at any moment, without asking whether she wants it or not. The girl thinks for a few minutes and says that she can help the Eagle tribe, but there must be some benefit for her too. The chief says that being in their tribe is already quite an advantage. The chief offers Anne to be an ambassador at the spring fair, which is under the care of 4 clans and will divide the profits among the tribes. The messenger agrees and says that they need to find a reason for their absence and somehow explain the appearance of eagles in the village. Edward is not a supporter of unnecessary lies and suggests that the girl tell everything as it is. Dan knocks insistently on the door and asks if everything is okay with Anne. The girl opens the door and assures the guy that everything is fine with her. Dan doesn't leave. He smelled something strange and asks the messenger who else is in the hut. The girl says that Edward became ill at night. Jasper got scared and came to her for help, and the girl had already managed to make a profitable deal. Leo tries his best to control himself and politely greets the leader of the Eagle clan. A moment later, the guy yells that this impudent eagle has already kidnapped Anne, and now he dared to break into her house and ask for help. The girl tries to calm Dan down, saying that if he does something to the leader, it will be more difficult for her to treat him. Lev takes everything personally and says that they only confessed their feelings to each other, and the girl already has a new admirer. Edward looks at the couple with affection and notices that the messenger's partner is very jealous. But this is not a quality that a good man should have. Anne, tired of dealing with men, tells Edward that she agrees with his words, but now he has no place in her hut. The messenger tells the chief to pack up and leave, otherwise he might not see his brother tomorrow. Edward calmly expresses his hope that the girl will keep their agreement. Having transformed and getting ready to fly away, the leader finally advises the girl to change her partner. Dan explodes with rage, but Anne calms him down and asks him not to pay attention. Numerous eagles circle in the sky above the rocks, creating a bizarre pattern. Approaching the rocks, Anne looks at the sky in fascination and asks her companions what it means. Dan looks thoughtfully at the sky and says that this is a welcoming ceremony from the Eagle tribe. Jasper comes down to the young people and tells the girl that he will carry her to the cave. Suddenly, the guy notices that not only the messenger has climbed on top of him, but also 2 werewolves. The boys explain that firstly, they can't fly, and secondly, they won't leave Anne alone in a strange tribe. Without thinking twice, Jasper suddenly shakes himself, and both werewolves fly down with a scream. In the cave, Edward looks very bad. His illness leaves him with practically no chance. Seeing the leader, Anne feels a strong pity and hopes that she made it in time and will be able to help the man. Jasper approaches and anxiously explains to the girl that his brother's illness has caused him to become estranged. The young man explains that their tribe is the guardian of the citadel, but several years ago, the power of the totem that gives them vitality weakened. Anne is perplexed. How can a totem run out of power? How can such a thing happen? The girl understands that the matter is very serious. Jasper hopefully asks if she knows anything about it. Anne assures the young man that she knows her business and will do her best to help his brother and the entire tribe. Jasper tenderly takes the girl's hands and tells her that he trusts her and entrusts his older brother to her. She truly is worthy of becoming a mate for the tribe's chieftain. Anne assures the boy that she is helping for completely different reasons, and that this topic is of no interest to her. Deciding not to waste any time, Jasper says that if his brother is not interested in the girl, then he will gladly offer himself to her. Anne pushes the guy off the cliff with a powerful jerk and shouts at him not to interfere with her treatment. The girl shows Edward a drawing on the rock and tells him that he needs to sit in the same position. Anne says that after the chief has taken the right pose, he needs to say certain words 3 times. Edward says that he doesn't quite understand the drawing. Could the girl show him how to do it correctly? Anne, not suspecting a trick, takes the required pose and says that there is nothing complicated about it. Seeing the expression on Edward's face, the girl realizes that he is simply making fun of her. The leader laughingly asks forgiveness for his little deception and seriously asks what he should do next. Anne says this pose and words will help the man relax his muscles, and then she will begin the healing. The girl explains that she will try to act as a totem that can stop alienation, and the leader must try to suppress it in himself. Suddenly, Edward is overcome by another coughing fit, which seems much worse than the previous ones. The messenger explains that this is how it should be, which means the healing process is starting. After some time, the cave is illuminated by a golden light, and stunningly beautiful wings appear behind Edward's back. The girl watches the metamorphoses unfold with delight and happily realizes that she has succeeded. Edward is relieved to realize that he feels much better and thanks the messenger from the bottom of his heart. Suddenly, the chief embraces Anne with his wings and pulls her towards him, smiling and saying that his wings cannot be controlled. The girl examines and feels the wings with interest, and suddenly a feather remains in her hands. Anne is embarrassed, says it wasn't on purpose, and asks if she needs the feather back. Edward allows the girl to keep the feather, but notes that in their tribe, eagles only give feathers to their other halves. Anne turns away in irritation, thinking that she has stepped on the same rake again. Suddenly, the girl notices an eagle flying up on which Sean and Dan are sitting. The boys go into the cave and the wolf cautiously suggests that the girl return home. Suddenly, Edward falls to his knees, begins coughing violently, and his wings disappear. The messenger runs up to the man in fear, not understanding what happened to his wings, and asks how he feels. The chief presses himself against Anne's legs and quietly says that these are all the consequences of alienation, and he has not yet fully recovered. The girl firmly declares to her partners that they cannot return now. The eagle tribe needs help, and she must heal them. The jealous guys can't take it anymore. Sean pushes Anne aside, and Dan pushes Edward away from her. The werewolves cover the girl, and the lion says that she can heal the eagles, but she should not blindly trust them. Anne thinks wearily that there are too many men per square meter at the moment. The chief and his brother stand on the edge of a cliff and discuss the need to arrange a meeting as soon as possible. Jasper asks if his brother was pretending when he said he was feeling unwell, and the chief asks with a smirk what the boy himself thinks about it. The young eagle says thoughtfully that it was most likely part of the plan to leave the messenger with them. The boy naively asks if his brother is really that interested in her. Edward slaps the guy on the back of the head and advises him to keep his mouth shut. In a nearby cave, Dan can't tear himself away from the messenger, covering her body with kisses. The girl indignantly says that they came here to heal the tribe. Leo releases a secret weapon in the form of ears and languidly says that he misses you very much. The next day, Anne is busy treating the eagles, who actually feel better from her touch. Noticing that the girl is so tired that she can barely stand on her feet, Edward picks her up and asks if she is getting too carried away with the treatment. The chieftain solicitously says that the messenger needs to rest because the treatment takes too much energy. Jasper flies up to the cave and shouts that it's time to embrace the wind. Edward explains that when the wind comes, one can receive the blessing of the beast god. But the sick tribesmen are afraid of being late. Anne asks how long this will take. She wants to try to help everyone. The next morning, Anne is delighted to see snow and thinks that she has long dreamed of seeing snow in the mountains. The girl is constantly in a cold cave, and since she can't find the necessary herbs there, she is sure that she will soon fall ill. The brothers watch Anne and discuss how she is very different from all the previous messengers. The thing is that Anne doesn't want to do anything except help people. She spends all her time with the sick. Jasper bluntly states that the girl is so smart, kind, and hardworking, and he wants to make her his partner. In the werewolf village, Sean and Dan are tidying up the hut and eagerly awaiting their beloved's return tomorrow. Meanwhile, Anne walks with delight through the snowdrifts, thinking about how it snowed for 3 days and created impressive snowdrifts. Edward comes out of the cave. He wants to say that the messenger's things are almost packed, and tomorrow she will be delivered to the village. But the leader doesn't have time to utter a word, because a large snowball flies straight into his face. Suddenly, a snowball flies back at the girl, but not from the side where Edward is standing. Jasper appears from the side and reproachfully asks why he wasn't invited to play snowballs. Young people, with carefree enthusiasm, begin to throw snow at each other with gusto. Edward, watching from the sidelines, thinks that sometimes it's not bad to feel like little children again. After a while, Edward notices that the girl's hands are cold, but she brushes it off and pulls the leader to play with them. Suddenly, Jasper calls Anne and points to a high mountain from which a huge layer of snow is beginning to fall. Edward grabs the girl in his arms and says that they need to fly away as quickly as possible because an avalanche is coming down. The reincarnated Jasper says with embarrassment that he forgot that avalanches were happening in the mountains at this time. The werewolf tribe's village was completely buried under snow. Dan is outraged that the Eagle clan did not warn the other clans about the avalanche. Leo fears that the Eagles want to use the situation to keep Anne for themselves, but he will not allow this. The boys appear in the cave. Jasper meets them at the entrance and arrogantly says that their clan does not welcome guests. Lev replies that his mate is here, so he doesn't need an invitation, and Sean politely apologizes for the intrusion. The wolf notices the girl and tenderly says that he missed her very much, and that he also brought pillows and spices. The girl hugs her partners, and from the outside it looks very harmonious. Jasper angrily asks Edward why he doesn't throw out the uninvited guests. The chieftain's younger brother declares that these werewolves disgust him. In the evening, the young people finally find themselves alone in the cave and sincerely enjoy each other without jealousy or misunderstandings. Jasper guards the entrance to the messenger's cave and hears everything that is happening. The guy thinks that the girl really is not like everyone else. In the morning, Anne tells Dan that like the other females, she will go help clear the rubble. The girl enthusiastically throws herself into work, clearing away rubble and searching for surviving items. The messenger asks Jasper to help her carry heavy wooden objects, and the boy decides that this is a great chance to prove himself as a strong man. The young man approaches one of the clan's sisters who is working nearby, and tells her that it is time for her to rest a little. Suddenly, Anne hears a loud crack and realizes that the surviving beam she is standing next to is breaking and starting to fall. The messenger manages to push the girl away, and she and Jasper end up under the rubble. The young man managed to open his wings at the last moment and protect Anne from strong blows. The frightened girl asks why Jasper didn't fly away. The guy simply replies that he couldn't leave her in trouble. Dan and Sean are helping to clear the rubble. Anne can't stay under it for long. The messenger gently strokes the boy's cheek and says that as soon as they get out, she will immediately heal him. The young man decides to confess his feelings to Anne. He is ready to say the most important, but such difficult words. Suddenly, the rubble above the young people disappears, and the lion roughly lifts the eagle by its wings, removing it from the girl. Dan begins to frantically twist the girl in different directions, noticing that she is covered in scratches. The guy hugs Anne tightly and asks for forgiveness for not going with her and not being able to protect her. Later, Anne persuades Jasper to lie down and rest. Although she has cured him, his bones and muscles will still hurt for some time. The lion and the wolf discuss the situation. Dan heatedly says that they need to take the girl from this nest. Since the day of the rubble collapse, Jasper has been trying in every way to catch Anne alone and finally confess his feelings. But Dan constantly gets in his way, preventing him from saying a word. One day, the young man collected a wonderful bouquet, brought it to the messenger, and almost began to speak. But then the lion appears and says that he has long known about the youth's veneration of Anne's medical talents. The lion puts his arm around the young eagle's shoulders and tells the girl that he will make a wonderful friend. The messenger shows a package of medicinal herbs and says that they need to find 30 of each type. Jasper comes to Edward, confesses everything, and desperately asks what he should do. The brother says that the boy needs to grow up, but since everything is so serious, he will help this time. One of the Eagle clan calls out to Dan and says that the tribe elder wants to see him. At the same time, the girl tells Sean that on the orders of the elder, the guy needs to negotiate with the Snake tribe. Having gathered at the clan elders, the boys are told that the Snake tribe has been severely damaged by an avalanche, and they urgently need help to dig out the inhabitants from under the snow. Jasper eavesdrops at the entrance to the cave and thinks about how cleverly his brother arranged everything. Left temporarily without rivals, the young man finds winter flowers and carefully prepares a place for the ceremony he has planned. The guy manages to prepare everything, but suddenly realizes that he ate something wrong and urgently needs to leave. A few minutes later, Edward approaches the prepared cave and asks if Anne is there. The chief notices the decorated cave and does not want to believe what his foolish brother has planned. Noticing the approaching messenger, Edward thinks with irritation that he must somehow get out of this and help Jasper. The chief tries to lead the girl away from the cave, saying that his wing hurts and needs to be examined urgently. Anne wants to return to the cave and inspect the wing as soon as possible, but the man says that he is not comfortable here and persuades her to go to his cave. Suddenly, the girl finally looks at the cave and asks in bewilderment what all this means. Edward tries to explain something to the girl, but she fearfully demands that he keep his distance. Suddenly, Anne stumbles and awkwardly bumps her nose right into Edward's stomach. The man notices dirt on the girl's cheek, reaches out and gently wipes her cheek. Obeying some incomprehensible impulse, Edward approaches Anne with the clear intention of kissing the girl. Then Jasper appears from the bushes and with a mixture of horror and bewilderment asks what is going on here. Anne doesn't understand why she has to justify herself, but she still claims that nothing happened here. The guy just misunderstood everything. At this moment, as if by Murphy's Law, the messenger stumbles and begins to fall again. The girl flies straight at Edward and they both start to fall into the bushes. Somehow, the girl lands on the man and their lips meet in an unexpected kiss. Realizing the absurdity of the situation, Anne tries to explain that Jasper misunderstood everything. There is nothing between her and Edward, and if the guy does not believe her, he can ask his brother. The girl turns to the leader, but for some reason he remains thoughtfully silent and blushes. Suddenly, Anne turns to the young man and asks what difference it makes to him, even if there is something between her and his brother. Jasper, with tears in his eyes, says that he really likes Anne, and he never expected that his older brother would get ahead of him. The girl looks at the guy in bewilderment and confusion. She didn't consider him a man at all. Suddenly, Jasper takes Anne's hands and declares that he is not jealous at all, and is ready to take responsibility for his brother. The messenger looks at the young man in bewilderment and refuses to believe what she hears. Sean and Dan appear from behind the bushes and suspiciously ask what the young people are doing here. The emerging brothers from the Eagle clan realize with horror that what just happened is nothing less than the beginning of chaos. The messenger is tired of this stupid situation, waves her hands in irritation and says that everyone is misunderstanding everything. Jasper puts on a mysterious look and tells Anne that they know everything. The chief's younger brother recalls that when he was sick, the girl constantly brought him fruit. The young man also saw how the messenger secretly took his feathers, and in their clan, this only testifies to one thing. Anne explains that the feathers of mountain eagles are rumored to have healing properties, and that she collected them for experiments. Jasper, in desperation, reaches out to Anne and says that the girl confessed her sympathy for the young man in a dream. The messenger tries to explain that she didn't dream about the guy at all, and if she mumbled something in her sleep, it doesn't mean anything anyway. Anne firmly states that she treats Jasper like a little brother, and there is nothing more to discuss. Dan tells the girl that she shouldn't let the little eaglet chase her. Anne assures the lion that he has no reason to be jealous and kisses him convincingly. Jasper is beside himself, thinking that after everything that happened, he likes Anne even more than before. After much reflection, the young man comes to the conclusion that he needs to be more persistent. The next day, the girls are sorting through medicinal herbs, and one of the sisters asks Anne to help her get a pot from the top shelf of the rack. The messenger is happy to help and begins to climb up. Suddenly, the girl's fingers slip off the shelf and she realizes that the heavy rack is about to crush her. Suddenly, the shelves stop and the girl herself is caught by Edward's strong hand. The chief gently asks Anne if she is hurt, and the girl, touched by his concern, replies that everything is fine. A sister from the Eagle clan observes the piquant situation and decides that it would be better for her to leave. Anne notices the girl's escape and desperately begs her not to leave. Edward continues to hold the messenger and playfully asks if the girl should at least thank him. Anne breaks free from the chief's grasp and confidently heads towards the caves, but Edward says they need to go the other way. Having filled a basket with the plants needed for healing, the messenger realizes that it will be too heavy for her to carry it alone. Suddenly, Jasper appears behind the girl and says that he would be happy to help her. The boy throws the basket over his shoulder, says that he is always happy to help a friend, and invites Anne to take a walk in the forest. The couple approaches a stream and the messenger realizes that crossing it will be very difficult. Jasper, wanting to show Anne his strength and care, grabs the girl around the waist and joyfully says that he will gladly carry her. A little later, Sean asks the girl how her foray into the forest went. Anne admits that Jasper simply tormented her. Edward arrives, says that it has become significantly colder outside, and hands the messenger a blanket. The girl delightedly notices that the blanket is made of beautiful velvet. The chief says that such blankets warm better than all others, and this speaks of the sincerity of the giver. Sean thanks the Eagle Tribe chief and says that it's time for him and Anne to go. Jasper looks into the cave to see the messenger, says that because of the snowfall, everyone has been sitting at home for 3 days, and he brought the girl fresh fruit. The girl gratefully accepts the apples and, looking at the half-naked young man, asks if he is cold. Jasper insists that he doesn't feel cold, and Anne says that it's time for him to go home and they'll talk another time. Noticing that Sean is trying not to show his jealousy, the girl tenderly kisses the guy and assures him that she only needs him. The wolf sadly notices that the girl hasn't been paying any attention to him lately. A day later, one of the sisters looks into the cave and says that the snow has stopped. A couple has decided to have a wedding ceremony and invites Anne. The girls come out into the stone circle, everyone greets the messenger, and the sister asks her to wait a little. Suddenly, Edward lands in front of the girl, dressed in beautiful clothes and holding gorgeous flowers in his hands, and declares that Anne has their faith and blessing. The man kneels before the messenger and asks her to accept the flowers, but Anne senses something is wrong and refuses. Edward calmly again offers the messenger to accept the bouquet and hand it over to the priest for sacrifice. Jasper appears behind Anne, also dressed unusually and preparing to play the role of a priest. Having received the flowers, the young man suddenly begins to transform, and amazing wings appear behind his back. Edward proudly notes that his brother has finally grown up. He worked long and hard to achieve what he wants. Anne is surprised to note that the brothers are descendants of the chieftain, and do they really need to fight for anything? Jasper, who appeared behind them, angrily announced that he had received the rank of priest in a fair clan battle, and turned around and walked away. Edward explains that in the Eagle clan, power is not passed on by inheritance, and the girl's words somewhat offended Jasper. Anne tosses and turns all night and can't sleep, deciding that in the morning she will definitely find Jasper and apologize to him. 3 days later, the girl sits, eating apples and thinking that the chief's younger brother is just an unbearable child, hiding and depriving her of the opportunity to apologize. Half an hour later, Edward finds Anne completely out of her mind and doesn't understand what happened. Realizing that the girl has eaten too much intoxicating fruit, the man decides to take her to the cave. The girl shamelessly pesters the leader. He tries to explain that the messenger is drunk, but all in vain. Taking advantage of the opportunity, Edward asks Anne what she thinks about Jasper. The drunk girl aggressively declares that the boy is just a fool who likes to tease werewolves. Anne waves her arms belligerently and declares that if it weren't for the boy's pretty face, she would have defeated him long ago. The chief provocatively asks who the girl thinks is better, Jasper, Sean, or Dan. The girl decisively declares that Edward is the best and passionately kisses the man. The leader understands that Anne has absolutely no idea what she is doing and is trying to dodge in every possible way. The messenger begins to examine and touch the man's body, which delights her. The girl decisively says that she likes the man so much that she will take him whether he wants it or not. Responding to another passionate kiss, the man realizes that he no longer has the strength to resist.